Welcome to the review of Spirit of Excalibur. It was created in 1990 by Synergistic and distributed by Virgin Mastertronic. The game takes place in the year 539, after King Arthur had died. You start the game as Constantine, who's heading to Camelot in order to claim the throne. There's others, of course, that try to claim the throne throughout the game, which are considered the enemies. There's the Saxons, and there's also Lord Mordred. The game starts by showing you an overhead view like this, and icons represent the party. Here we can see Sir Constantine is automatically heading toward Camelot. In the upper right corner there's a little globe you can click on to get a view of the characters. Clicking on a specific character gives you their inventory and other details. You move by clicking on the horse on the right side of the screen, then clicking on the icon, and a 2 icon appears. You simply then select where you want to go. You can also use this to actually seek after a person, so no matter where the person's going, you'll follow them. Very handy feature. Once you actually reach a person, if they're friendly, you can stop and talk to them or join forces. You can also just pick a specific location on the map and you'll be notified when you reach it. You can control how quickly or slowly the time passes. You can move a specific person by clicking on their icon and then selecting the name label. The way the artificial intelligence works is when you tell an icon to move, it first tries to follow roads before it goes into more hazardous terrain. Sometimes if you're trying to get through hazardous terrain, the troops don't even know how to get there. Here you can see our icon just keeps circling around. The game uses different icons based on the different types of units controlled too. It's pretty cool. There's of course a save and load game feature. You can type in whatever name you want. The design of this game is very similar to the game I reviewed called War in Middle-earth. You can use the magnify icon to zoom in on a given location, but unlike Middle-earth, you can't do it just anywhere on the map. It has to be a location that's significant, such as a town or a city. The graphics are fantastic. You can actually see that things in the foreground go on top of the things in the background, even your characters. From this detail view, you can view the stats of the characters just like you could on the overhead map. There's hit points, health, magic, combat, armor, nobility, and faith. You can zoom out by clicking the map at this detailed level. And on some levels you can actually click on a little door icon which takes you inside the building. Then you can move around the building by clicking on doors. It's a little awkward and hard to get used to at first, but eventually it's kind of like a little mystery game. Sometimes you'll find doors that are locked, in which you have to have a specific key to open it. Here you can see that key didn't open this lock, but this key does. Makes it a nice combination of role-playing and mystery. One thing that is quirky is you can zoom in on locations on the map without anybody being there. So it's kind of like you're a ghost or a phantom. You can pick up items by using the glove icon and then hitting pick up. If you have multiple people in the party, you always have to instruct who you want to do the action first. There's also a bribe option when you're trying to get information out of somebody. Here this old woman says she doesn't know even though I gave her a little money. So now I'm going to offer some more, and then she spills the information. You can also sometimes give a special item. It's kind of like a quest item in order to get special information. Here we're going to give this man a golden chalice. You can also request items. He asked what you wanted to request. I said, I want your healing balm. And then he hints that it costs money. So then you can do a trade. The way these menus work is pretty awkward and pretty time consuming as well. Another option is to give an item. Sometimes you run across some characters that offer you items for free. And then even better yet, they offer to join your party afterwards. Sometimes when you meet someone, you're thrown into single combat. If you go there, it zooms into the detail level, and if you ignore it, the computer automatically determines who wins. So here we zoom in to see who we're fighting. Lupinus. So then combat begins. It automatically attacks, which I didn't know at the time. You don't have to do anything. The winner gains a combat point. Combat's pretty awkward. Only one person can fight at a time, so the person currently fighting has to withdraw as someone new comes up. As enemies get hit, a little skull appears next to their name. Typically, enemies have 5 hit points. Wizards and priests have special attacks, as you can see. It's pretty interesting. If you go to manual combat, then your character will just stand there until you actually try to do something. It's kind of cheesy. I mean, like the guy would really just sit there and keep hitting your shield. I will tell you, manual combat's almost impossible. I could never even hit this guy. The enemy can actually decide to run too if it's not going in his favor. Here, the enemy is on the left. Lionel's kicking his ass. So Malahan decides to retreat. Another kind of strange thing you can do is you can seize an item from one of your own party members. And that throws you into combat for a turn. The game also tries to force some morals on you. Like it won't allow you to seize from an old woman. One WTF moment I had was I was attacking somebody and it tells me I lose a nobility point. Okay, I can understand that. So then I hit the person and I gain a nobility point. Oh, so I guess it's okay as long as you win. The purpose of these nobility points is to prevent your characters from becoming evil. If you lose too many points, they'll actually switch sides and you can't control them anymore. Sometimes during a challenge, you're offered an option if you have an army with you, where you can execute the foe. That way, you don't actually have to fight at all. But the problem is, you lose nobility. Still can be fun. That guy actually killed 3 of our troops before he went down. Not too bad. Sometimes you'll run into enemies that are almost impossible to kill, such as this giant. Didn't even get a hit in on him. There's special items you can use in the game to help your party members. Here we can see Nineveh has 4 out of 5 hit points. So we're going to use a vitality potion. It says she gains strength and life energy. So now if we look at her stats, her max hit points went up to 6 and her health 5. There's the prowess potions, which gives you combat ability. The game gives you no indication whether items are supposed to target your characters or enemies. For example, this one actually made me lose nobility. Here we can see Constantine has a combat ability of 15. So now we're going to use a runic blade. He discards his old sword and he gained combat ability. Go back to his stats. Wow, an increase of 5. Some items, such as this helm, makes no difference. Here we actually lose combat ability. We discarded our sword and put a knife in our hand. And some characters refuse to use certain equipment. There's also spells. Here we cast defense. You can cast a charm spell on a target, and basically it's like bribing them for free. Not many characters have a magic ability. Here one of our characters that does have magic ability is fighting this demon. It's really cool to watch the animations. Each shot a character makes that uses magic lowers its magic points by 1. Ooh, that hurt. Actually disintegrated after dying. Here we're going to use a special item on the fell beast. It's kind of weird how it works because time pauses and you can keep using them over and over. There, the enemy's magic defense absorbed the spell. But see, slowly, one at a time, we're draining life from the enemy. Here we used it on a guard, and he just falls down dead. You don't lose nobility if you do attacks in this manner. Here we used up that item and killed the demon. And here we kill it by just using our fireballs. Which again, all this is automatic, the computer controls it. If a magic user kills an enemy with straight combat, they get a magic point afterwards. You can search the body of dead enemies, and sometimes you'll find something, sometimes you won't. Here our monk Baudwin is searching this person by molesting his foot. If one of your characters dies, their items are actually left behind. And they stay there in that position of the map, which is very cool. The game actually also remembers an enemy's hit points. So if you do some damage to him in one turn, and then come back later and fight him again, it remembers. There's cool locations such as Stonehenge. This is actually very useful for a magic user. If they come here alone and they use a replenish spell, they get their magic back. There's quite a few mini quests in the game which you can do in order to command troops. Here we killed that beast that we saw earlier, and this guy will allow us to command his troops. Here we save this maiden and bring her back to her father in order to command his troops. As I mentioned earlier, you can ignore attacks, and then the computer will automatically determine the winners and the losers. You can be ambushed at points in the game. Here we just automatically died And since Constantine is in the party, the game's over. Sometimes when you don't have an army with you and you decide to challenge someone, they may decide to seize you, which just means you're instantly killed. And here's the death scene of the game. Nice creepy feel to it. Now it's time to show you my most fun part of the game. The big combat where you're controlling armies. On the right side of the screen you can see all the different characters and unit types. The left side you get to choose what type of unit you want to control. And here it's automatic, they just basically do their own attacking unless you tell them otherwise. Here we told these knights to flank, so for the given turn they run up and around the enemy, doing no damage, but then the next turn they'll come flying in and do a huge amount of damage. Combat always shows your units dying first through that given round, and then it shows how many of the enemy units are killed. Basically just goes down the line. And of course characters have hit points and it shows how injured they are based on those skulls. After each round it gives a summary at the bottom saying how many troops were lost. So this label just keeps updating at the bottom of the screen, telling you what's going on. And again, you can choose to control specific characters or the units. So it's kind of a real-time but also turn-based at the same time. Now one thing that's really interesting is if you kill the leader, you don't have to kill the rest of the troops and you win. Because there's no way I could have won that battle against those troops. Here you can see the difference of the stats in the knights versus the soldiers versus the archers. So basically knights have 2 hit points, they're twice as tough. Archers have 7 combat, so they're a little better at doing damage. You can use magic in the middle of big combat, but sometimes the enemy has magic defense that'll block the spells. You can also use items in the middle of combat. Here you can get some of our characters' hit points back by using healing balms. And again, you can use vitality potions and other stat changing potions. So here we're going to use the charge ability with these soldiers. That causes more damage to be done, but you also take more damage the second round. Flanking is the opposite. The first round you do no damage, and then the second round you do heavy damage. Here you can see him running back from behind and attacking the enemy. There's also a retreat option. You click on the character and say retreat, and on the map at the bottom right you'll see him moving backwards. Sometimes if you're the only characters left, you'll only run so far back. You can also fall back to the walls if losses are heavy and you're inside a walled fort. Basically allows you to escape after one round of combat. But the enemy can do it as well. The game is segregated into acts, kind of like a play, and basically that's when you complete a main quest. Here it's showing Morgan's Castle and kind of giving us a feel for what's coming up next in this next act. After completing a quest, you're shown an overhead view of Britain. By the grace of God, these lands are under the rule of Constantine, King of Britain. And then at the beginning of each act, you're allowed to choose which knights are going to act. It shows you the round table and gives you a little background on what's happening. And one of the things that's difficult is, unless you know the history of King Arthur, you really don't know who these people are, and you just randomly pick them. So you get to pick a total of 3 knights. And then you continue on. So in closing, I'd just like to reiterate a few things I've talked about. One of the biggest influences for me in rating a game is a game's replay value. If it's one that I'm going to continue to play in the future, obviously that kicks it way up on the rating scale. Unfortunately, even though this game has fantastic graphics for the time, and pretty good music, and a nice Camelot feel to it, there isn't a whole lot of replay value. Even though it's similar to War in Middle-earth, I feel like this game limits your ability to move around freely, unlike War in Middle-earth. The timeline set on this game is very strict. You don't have any time to roam around and just explore things like you do in War in Middle-earth. But besides that, the game does have a good roleplay feel, and also an air of mystery. So if you're a big fan of Camelot and King Arthur, the game's worth at least one playthrough. Also, if you're a fan of the War in Middle-earth game, then you'll probably like this as well. But just keep in mind that the world is smaller, and you're forced into a timeline to make things much more rapid. Well, that pretty much wraps up this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.